Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webcast. My name is Jim Patterson, and I'm with OnePlan, and I'll be your presenter today. Today's topic is optimizing operations by aligning resources with strategic objectives using OnePlan. There will be a presentation of concepts and a demonstration of how OnePlan provides these capabilities to you and can deliver that today. So let's talk about trends that are shaping corporate operations department, or that are at least impacting corporate operations departments. An obvious one is digital transformation. This trend is continuing and accelerating, and operations departments are leveraging different digital technologies like AI, the Internet of Things, and other automation to streamline processes and become more efficient and improve their overall decision making. The push that really started heavy with the pandemic accelerated adoption of remote work, and operations department heavily investing in deploying and supporting remote collaboration and tools so that we can work in more distributed ways, and that includes project management and portfolio management. And then there's agile and lean practices taking hold. Agile and lean methodologies are no longer just for software development, and operations departments and many other disciplines are adopting these principles to improve responsiveness and just enhance their overall flexibility. And then the whole mindset of customer centricity. We're in the age of the customer, and operations departments are aligning their process to more closely align what the customers expect and are demanding now. They are much more informed and demanding audiences for us today, and we need to enhance their experiences to retain them as customers. And then there's the data analytics and business intelligence. Operations departments are leveraging data analytics and business intelligence tools to not only gain insights, but help make decisions and identify areas where improvements needed, and possibly even get more early warning when change is needed. Risk management. We are in an era of volatility and uncertainty in our business environments, and operations departments have to support that and sustain that. And we're placing greater emphasis on risk management and contingency and mitigation plans so that we can maintain our business continuity and continue our growth plans. And then as we go through digital transformation and new tools like AI, operational professionals are investing in reskilling and upskilling people to adapt to and be proficient with changing and new technologies. And it may even, these technologies evolve or morph what those job roles are, or what they do on a day-to-day basis based upon the advent of those technologies. And that impacts the operations function as well. There's challenges with all this. Let's just think about this in terms of challenges with initiatives and resources, initiatives, projects, and the resources revolved around those. There's the resource allocation piece, where ensuring that we are allocating our resources efficiently to the various disciplines, types of projects and initiatives can be complex. And often in operations, we need to prioritize among the competing demands that we have for resource utilization among all the different types of work we're supporting. Then there's the coordination aspect. We have different teams and departments cross-functionally in an organization that sometimes have to be involved. Even geographically dispersed or global initiatives can be challenging. And if a lack of, effective communication, coordination can lead to delays, duplication of efforts, people doing the exact same thing in different places, or even conflicts for resource allocation. On the change management side, as we're adapting to all these things, we're implementing change. And sometimes there's a resistance to change and, workflows and systems, and even things that we might have to change in the culture. And we must manage resistance to that change to ensure smooth transitions, because if we don't, we could risk disruptions within our ongoing operations and in the servicing of our customers, et cetera. Now, risk management, because of the volatility and the rapid pace of change in the marketplace today, we have to identify those risks, and we have to assess them. We have to have contingency plans, and we have to minimize the impact of these unexpected events. In uncertain economic times, we may be looking at budget constraints. Limited budgets may restrict the ability of us to do all the things that we would desire to do or like to do. And having to be prioritizing these things that are on our plate or potentially on our plate, we have to look at things like value, return on investment. It becomes critical to be able to assess that in a material and objective way. Regulatory compliance, all kinds of things are coming down the pike depending on your industry. And adhering to those things really impacts operations and can add complexity to initiatives that they're already embarked upon or things they're looking at doing. And they must stay updated on relevant laws and regulations, and then move and adjust and adapt as those things come about so that we don't find ourselves in violation. Then there's the overall talent management stuff, having the right skills in this changing environment where we need more and different skills. It's crucial for successful delivery of our initiatives that we have the right talent, and we need to attract and retain such talent. Otherwise, we're going to risk our success. And then technology integration. Adopting new technologies can pose challenges in terms of, legacy infrastructure, technical debt that we may have. We may have to do things like data migration and also retrain and update our user base on all that stuff. So we must ensure that also the technology that we have aligns with our business goals and provides the expected benefits. We need to make sure, and we'll talk a little bit today about all these things intertwined. We can't just be looking at delivering the elements of the tasks in a project. There's other dimensions to consider. And then performance measurement. We have to have good KPIs and metrics so we can track and assess our progress and evaluate the success of our initiatives. And operational departments, in their work, need to define clear goals and benchmarks at which they can do that. It can't be fuzzy. We need to have something that's tangible that we can point to. Ultimately, addressing these challenges requires a combination of things: strategic planning, effective communication, stakeholder engagement, and also continuous improvement efforts within operation and departments. What we see here is ongoing change, not just a point in time change, but these things are changing and forcing us to get better and improve over time continuously. Then if we take challenges in operations of aligning those resources, we talked about resource alignment challenges, and making sure they're aligned with our strategic plans, our leadership strategic goals for us and direction that they want us to go in. One of the things we have to have is clear strategic objectives, and operations departments may struggle to align resources with strategic objectives if these objectives are not clear or if they're always changing. And the lack of clarity can lead to misallocation of resources and heavy inefficiencies. The communication coordination, once we talked about, everybody has to be on the same page if we're going to do this effectively. So we have stakeholders both inside operations and outside the operations department, and we need to make sure everybody's rowing in the same direction. And without clear channels of communication, there's a risk that we might misinterpret or have conflicting priorities that limit our success. Also, the balancing of short-term and long-term goals. Operations departments have pressure and conflicts in the pressure to deliver short-term results on things that keep the doors open, keep the lights on, on a day-to-day basis. And, that can get in the way of working towards the longer-term strategic things, because sometimes the immediate crises take over. And we have to balance the immediate need with the future goals, especially when resource allocation decisions need to be made, and make sure that we're still pursuing the longer range objectives of the organization. And then those resource constraints, then, depending on how we do with strategy, being able to get the right resources on the right things, both keeping the doors open, keeping the lights on, as well as pursuing our longer range strategic goals becomes paramount. But there are real resource constraints, and then we have to balance that. Resistance to change, we talked about that. That's also inherent in the way we align resources with strategy. Realignment with new strategies may actually change the way people need to do things or the way they need to look at things, and that may be unsettling for some. Measuring and evaluation with the good KPIs in this area is important as well. And then the organizational silos, we got to bridge the gap. We got to synergize these, right? So those conflicting priorities, or if they operate in isolation of one another, we can have disconnects and even things that impact success or maybe run counterproductively with each other. And we got to break these down and foster collaboration across these silos, because if not, we're not going to achieve our strategic objectives. And then there's the market dynamics. External factors in the marketplace, or customer mindsets or preferences, or the regulatory requirements that we talked about, can impact and make us turn on a dime regarding the way we're allocating resources on our initiatives. So we must adapt quickly to change, and part of the reason that people are adapting more agile approaches is so they can respond to these types of things better. And we talked about the talent piece, about having the right skills as the marketplace changes and the demands change. That impacts the alignment with strategy as well. So the key is we have to have a coordinated approach to all of this. Now, the common components of operations projects and initiatives is not too unlike what you might find in other departments. The key whole things of initial planning and initiation, establishing a charter and scope definition and budgeting, those types of things. The project management itself of having plans and schedules and timelines and resource allocations to the elements within those plans. The communication and coordination across those, as we talked about, that's important. Execution and implementation, managing the tasks that are put forward, making sure we're delivering on a quality basis, and then adapting to change, and we can course correct during the course of an active project. We talked how risk management is important and to be able to identify and assess and mitigate those things. Monitor and control. The key thing is as we go, most projects don't go exactly as planned. So we have to have performance metrics, we have to have progress tracking, issue resolution, and then we have to have corrective actions that are needed in order to keep things current and make sure we're delivering the right things. The technology and tools, right? We have to have project management software, scheduling software, collaboration tools for communication, and the data analytics that are paramount today to having the right information on a timely basis for decision making. The training and development piece, so there's training programs and skill development and orientation. So as we're rolling new things out, we have to foster better change management and adoption. We have to make sure that people are trained, that they're educated, that they're oriented on what's expected of them so that when we roll it out, it doesn't fall on deaf ears. Then there's the evaluation and closure and lessons learned in the final report. And then because this is operations, and operations then has to sustain whatever process or mechanisms are put into place within that organization, we have to have a plan to make sure that what we're doing is sustainable. But even though it's sustainable, that doesn't mean that what we first deliver is going to be the final result. We have to have continuous improvement and get better with this as we learn things, as we run into things we didn't anticipate. And so we have to build that into our plans, knowing that that's not the end of the line, that we constantly have to be looking at improvement. So if we look at organization and information silos, they breed inefficiencies and lack of alignment, like we discussed, and that the poor alignment and collaboration between participating functional areas has some tangible things that it brings up. For example, if you have multiple tools and data sources and spreadsheets scattered all over the organization and they're trying to really coordinate on the same thing, the manual mashup of that data so that we can get a complete picture of things can be very, very time consuming and very laborious and frustrating. And then you have to take that mashed up data and manually recreate reports in a form and format that's needed. That's not fun. And then the duplication of effort of data entry, if you have to put the same updates in multiple places because different people are using different tool sets, that's not only time consuming, it's wasteful and prone to human error. And it's difficult to stay current in getting status from everybody, chasing people down and making sure they're putting their updates in all the right tools. And then the resource planning bit of it, outside of just the task status, sometimes people are treating that as a totally separate thing in like spreadsheets and other things, and it's not even really connected to the overall plan of the projects and initiatives that we're working on. So that can be, fraught with peril and with failure. So we have to first, go to this next wave of strategic alignment, and we have to align strategy with execution to make sure that we're working on the right things and delivering value in the right areas. And the Gartner Group talks about this as a set of processes involving people, strategy, and operations. And so that we can have shared objectives of what the business strategist or our leadership wants to see, and understanding and execution by those executing the change in a way that's consistent with what leadership wants. So we have, the system of strategy development and planning, the organizational alignment with those strategies, and then there's the operational and tactical plans that have to happen. And then we learn as we go and we monitor, and then we adapt afterwards as a basis for increasing value by executing that strategy well. So the key is it's all interrelated, and it's more than just putting a plan in place. And then the dimensions of what we call strategic portfolio management, or the acronym of SPM, it kind of coalesces all these different things. And so instead of just having a strategy and a project, there are other things to consider, as we talked about in the challenges area, right? There may be products that we need to understand, upgrade, update to be successful. There may be applications or systems in our organizations that need to be addressed or considered to be successful. There may be business capabilities or processes that we need to totally rethink in order to roll out something that we want to meet a certain objective or strategy. So meaning there's many facets and many components of this that need to be considered and have visibility into as we're planning and as we're executing. So the leadership requires strategic portfolio management to support enterprise-wide strategy to execution alignment, bridging that gap on that cross-functional collaboration and making sure we don't have the pains that silos bring. The definition of key business strategies, right, is to mapping to the key portfolio elements like the business capabilities, like digital and physical products or assets that we need, the applications and the projects themselves, and be able to define and prioritize these things together with one another to make sure that we're considering all the things we need to consider and have visibility into all the things we need to consider at all times during the execution and the planning phases. Now, this involves leadership who sets that overall direction. We have the IT and or functional management who owns the assets themselves and the applications and the infrastructure. And then the execution teams, the project teams, the PMOs, they plan to deliver the projects in pursuit of reaching those business goals ultimately. Now, we're at a stage where these disciplines are taking hold and they're becoming prevalent, and the tools that we're going to show you here today support that. But there's a long way to go. You know, the analysts are saying that only a small percentage of organizations are highly effective at all three key attributes of strategic portfolio management, meaning portfolio alignment, ongoing portfolio flexibility, and value-driven decision-making. 16%. So we have a lot of room for improvement and way to go here in adopting this multidimensional approach. And the fragmented approach can lead to pain, costs, and just failure. So the other key thing that really, I think, impacts operations as much, or if not more than anybody, is that we can overemphasize local customer needs and operational things on the day-to-day things, and it could unintentionally pull the whole enterprise away from strategic objectives and just focusing on the tactical, immediate now priorities and crises that might happen over the course of the day. And we can delay or get deferred or get sidetracked from actually achieving what we're strategically trying to do. Now, OnePlan as a solution provides a path to strategic portfolio management and a complete solution for the enterprise that addresses the things that we talked about here. For example, the business leaders be able to clearly define and identify objectives and key results, or OKRs, or value streams for continuous delivery, and be able to have those in the system and be able to track them and to quantify them so that we can execute on those strategies, but then leverage that in other ways. The execution leaders, they build plans and they may be using different methodologies. Some may be using more agile approaches, some may be using more waterfall, some may be more adaptive with a combination of both. Some may be delivering professional services or outsourced services, et cetera, product development, et cetera. Those things that we're doing, regardless of the method or the type of work, should be aligned with the strategy that we're doing. If it doesn't align with where the organization is going, we have to question why we're doing it in the first place. And then the functional leaders, the one that actually own these other elements that we have to consider, the overall enterprise and business architecture, the application portfolio, the product portfolio. These are things that if they're not addressed and addressed in a timely fashion in conjunction with what we're doing with the rest of the initiative, it can impact the ability to just succeed with that initiative overall. Now, OnePlan, strategic portfolio management has a lot of elements to it, and organizations are at different levels of maturity. And the key is to be able to meet you where you are, whether a crawl or walk or run stage in strategic portfolio management. But just because you're not fully mature in these areas does not mean you shouldn't get started. You can incrementally tackle these things as well, that we'll show you here today. So, what kind of things do we have in the OnePlan solution? Well, it has its full capability to capture and track OKRs in a strategic plan. It has the full ability for you to track portfolios of enterprise and business architecture elements. We'll talk about that a little bit today. And in consideration of those strategies and a consideration of the infrastructure that we have and the architecture that we have, people, customers, internal, external within your organization may be coming up with ideas and requests that should, as we vet them, align with what we have identified up above. And as we do that and we consider and prioritize these things as we talked about in the challenges, we can then build plans and decide what portfolio of initiatives we're going to work on. And the portfolio planning area there is really about selecting the right things to work on. And then how we visually look at those things on a real-time basis could be more, tabular list views like this with different elements, could be more agile approaches with portfolio boards for the way you look at that if you're a more agile-oriented group. And then roadmap views to look at when things are going to be delivered and how they relate to certain key events that may be going on within your organization or timelines. There's the capacity plan. We talked about it's important to have the right resources at the right time. Well, as we're selecting these ideas and requests, do we have the right mix and quantity of resources in our capacity to deliver on the things that we're committing to? We have to strike that balance, either that or go out and get more resources. And then there's a financial aspect. Dollars are not unlimited. Does what we commit to from an overall portfolio plan, do we have the financial budgeting and wherewithal to support all that? Does it fit within there? Or are we overcommitting? And then as things change or as new things come down the road, how do we evaluate getting those done? By doing what if scenario analysis modeling and looking at alternative plans on how we might accomplish those things. What we might move, what we might cancel, what we might defer in order to take on a new piece of work that maybe is more important. And then the execution piece is where we build work plans, whether it be a more traditional waterfall work plan or an agile plan. OnePlan has the full capabilities to do that type of planning and hybrids of those right within OnePlan itself. But if you're committed to other scheduling or agile tools, OnePlan has pre-built connectors for the popular ones out there: Microsoft Project for the web and planner, Smartsheet, right, Monday.com, Azure DevOps, Jira, you name it. The idea there is we can leverage what you've already invested in from a tool and from a thought process in the planning mechanisms there. And also within that, track things like your issues and your risks, which we said are very important, and track changes and evaluate changes and go through a change management process within the execution of your initiative itself. And then planning for resources within the specific individual initiative that all rolls up to that larger capacity plan we just talked about earlier. That's there with negotiation of the resources that may be managed by certain individuals in the functional groups, but the projects need to solicit those in matrixed organizations, which many organizations are, and have that roll into an overall capacity plan. And then the team members, we talked about having current and up-to-date information. Well, what about instead of silos, having an individual place where a user can go and see all the work that's been put on their plate across all the projects and initiatives that they're on, and be able to status those things in a My Work area and give the progress on that dynamically in one place. Or if you need to collect time, whether it be for external billing, whether it be for chargebacks, whether it be for capitalization of labor, there's a built-in timesheet so you can capture time, so you can do time and progress in the same tool. And then the reporting around that, whether it be individual project status reports, dashboards, at the portfolio level or different program levels, whatever it might be, that's all in there, including the visualizations of how these things all interrelate with one another. Ultimately, our goal is to have the right outcomes and deliver value and deliver the right things to the right people. Now, in this day and age, we couldn't do a presentation like this without somehow mentioning artificial intelligence. And OnePlan actually has its own built-in Sophia GPT to help you with all of these different disciplines that you see up above. Ultimately, what we want to do is we want to select the right work that aligns with the strategy of the organization, and we want to then execute well and do the work right and deliver the right value. So Sophia GPT, just a little bit about that. It is really a game changer. It's many of you are using ChatGPT and other things, but Sophia is a purpose-built AI assistant that is built for strategic portfolio management and OnePlan. It is using Microsoft's Azure OpenAI, which has all the security, compliance, and privacy that you get with the Microsoft cloud, as opposed to the general OpenAI and ChatGPT that's out there in the open internet. But it also understands what's going on in OnePlan. It's got its general knowledge that it has from Azure OpenAI, but it's been trained on OnePlan and the discipline of SPM, and will also factor in the data that you have in there as it gives you guidance and assistance and answers that you're looking for to your prompts. So the idea here is to really change the game and make us more effective in strategic portfolio management. And just so you know, it's a native part of the OnePlan solution. It's always available in OnePlan. It's that little blue button down in the bottom right of this screen that you're looking at. And as you click on Sophia, it then, depending on where you're at in the tool, context sensitive wise, it'll give you some sample questions that you might ask, but you're free to ask it any prompt that you may desire in order to see what it can come up with for you, okay? And then where we are now, it really is an inbuilt AI assistant, but just know that we are already working on some more fully autonomous use cases where it can predict or anticipate what you're going to need and offer up some things. And it's going to be not too long in the future that you're going to see OnePlan provide more autonomous things rather than things where you have to prompt it by asking it certain things to get a language-based response. Now, all the things we talked about, we're focused on operations here today in this webinar, but operationally, you're probably going to have to touch all of these different areas, if not more, in your organization, all these different departments, right, or functional areas. And OnePlan is designed for departments and programs fully across the enterprise. Now, when you incorporate AI into SPM, just be aware that we're not asking you to radically change the concepts of SPM. We're looking to have it be an assistant to make us more effective. For example, it can help us streamline intake and prioritization, right? Help us in that decision-making process. It can help us focus on building next generation talent, because having our existing people get proficient at leveraging AI to get better at their job may free them up to do more high value activities than they're currently doing today. It helps in the overall embracing of disruptive technologies, right? And that impacts our overall portfolio management when the disruptive technologies come down the pike, or anything disruptive that comes in from the marketplace. This can help us adapt more quickly to those types of things. Now, just food for thought, use cases for AI and strategic portfolio management. It can help us with the overall strategic plans we have. It can help us with portfolio management and the optimization of our portfolio. It can help us with work management. It can actually help us build work plans, schedules, and resource plans. It can help us with risk assessment. It can help us with resource allocation. It can help us with looking at the financials and forecasting where we may end up or what we may need to pay attention to. And here, for example, is, let's just say from an operations perspective, we asked, we're trying to build a strategy. Let's say simply we wanted to ask Sophia, provide us a list of viable OKRs for corporate operations, right? That question, I can ask it here in this context of, provide me a list of 5 viable objectives and key results for corporate operations. So let me run this. In the interest of time, I recorded a couple, and I'm going to show you a couple live ones too, but I'm going to ask it this question of generating some OKRs for operations. And as I expand this thing to a full screen, it's saying it gives me an objective to improve operational efficiency and 3 related key results to there about reducing average time spent on repetitive tasks, reduce the number of manual entries, etc. Enhance internal communication, which we cited was important. Optimize financial performance by reducing operational expenses and improving budget forecasting accuracy. Strengthen supply chain management. So once again, these are the types of things it can help us with. Rather than thinking of these things from scratch, it can at least give us a basis of a foundation that we may edit and put our own slant on. But the idea is it's making us better, more efficient, and helping us deliver more things. So with that, I thought I would go into just a little bit of a demonstration of OnePlan. So as I go in here and I am, in OnePlan, let me just first start with a home page. Now, no matter what type of user or what role you are or what access you have, everybody can have their own home or insights page that would allow us to have insights as to things that require our attention, like what's overdue, what needs approval, what might be out of compliance, quick access to the initiatives and the plans that I am directly involved in without having to navigate through an entire portfolio. I can click into the whole thing, or even go directly into things like a work plan or a resource plan or the details page or whatever it might be. Recent conversations on things like tasks or resources or work plan or plans themselves of things that are related to the things I'm specifically involved in, and be able to drill into the details around any one of those things, as well as alerts to things that may be coming up, due soon, or overdue. The idea is it's a personalized experience for each user, okay? Now, we started the discussion by saying, we got to align with strategies. So if I look at a strategic plan, OnePlan has the ability to plan our objectives and key results, but you can structure this any way you like in your configuration, but we have pre-configured solutions that you can get going with right away. In this particular case, I've got objectives and I've got some key results associated with each of those, which are the tangible measures of, are we making progress towards reaching those strategies. So for example, let's see something that's a little bit more operations related. An objective here might be improve IT infrastructure, reduce server downtime, implement automated backup system and perform daily backups, upgrade all network switches to support higher speeds. The idea there is that you may have objectives and key results. And if I launch and drill into this one objective or this strategy, I can look at a few things. I can look at the details around that. And as I identify this, you can actually have forms created through drag and drop to have the data elements in here that you want to categorize and classify these things, to have your approval or lifecycle process for this objective in there, descriptions, the schedule of when we want that, maybe the prioritization scheme of how important it is, and other things that it might be related to can all be itemized. So this is just an example of what you might have. But on the reporting side, that visualization I talked about in the slides, I can see that I actually have an objective or a successor that is waiting on me. But the totality of the relationships here, look at the complexity here. I have this objective, right, that this approved IT infrastructure that has 3 key results that that's related to me. I can see that I have one that's red, one that's yellow, and one that's green. I have then projects and epics that are supporting the delivery or the achievement of those key results and those objectives. And related to those are products, our applications, our business capabilities, and value streams. And any one of these elements that I want to look at, I can look at any given point in time. So say, for example, I wanted to say, what's going on with this one that's red here, this key result? I can just either quickly pop out what we call a quick edit to get the details of what's off track, what it's associated with, so understanding what might be impacted, looking at trends around that, and be able to get into all that very quickly. Or I could go and look at a key result of reduced server downtime. This one's yellow. Instead of just quick up, I can just drill through and go right to that element and get to that key result. And I can see there is some precedence of things dependent on us and we're dependent on. And it has its own more simplified runway, say for this particular key result, right? I'm tied to that one strategy, and it is related to these 3 projects and epics in here. And then there's the products and applications, business capabilities, and the value streams that it's related to. So once again, we have access to this in all areas of the tool set, right? And there's even things like status reporting around all these. Now, once the strategy is enumerated and we're executing on it, there may be ideas and requests that come in that we may want to evaluate based upon how well they correlate to what the overall objective or the direction of the organization is. So for example, here's a list of requests and ideas that have come in from all over the organization. And we have a portal that allow people to just come in from anywhere and do that. Let me just do this really quickly. Let's just say the metadata right here, I wanted to group these by business unit. And since we're talking about operations today, now I can look at the ideas or requests that are coming in from operations. And then when I look at that, I can see, cybersecurity. I can see, let's see, website redesign might be a combination of operations and marketing. I can see there's no dependencies that we have, but I can see all the things visualized that's related to that, as well as all the details around that, define it, that categorize it, the status data that's in here, how well we're doing against this or how we're prioritizing it, and all the things that might come into play for us to decide whether or not to approve this, right? I can also go back to this list and I can look at it in a different way. For example, I could take this and go look at a different view, and we can do things where maybe we have objective prioritization scores, but maybe we have voting, maybe we have some crowdsourcing. So to understand how popular or what support we have for a particular idea, those are things that we have in this thing as well, right? And then we can even at any given point in time, based upon this, we can reorganize given the right permissions or workflow and be able to promote these things. And I can promote this from an idea or a request to a project or an initiative at any given point in time and just carry forth all that information without having to, transcribe it from an idea system into a project or portfolio management solution as we go on through. Now, if I go into a prioritization view here, let's just say, where we have the prioritization scores and other data points regarding this, let me call up Sophia and let me ask her a question live rather than a recorded one like I just showed you. And I'm going to ask it, based upon priority and ROI, which 3 projects should we approve first and why? And it's going to do some analysis. It's going to take a look at it and, give us its assessment based upon the data we've captured in this whole array of ideas and requests that we have within this. And the nice part, it's looking at and leveraging its knowledge, but it's also leveraging the current OnePlan data that it's looking at, but it's not learning on it. It's assessing it for this particular prompt, but it's not storing this. It's just using it for this purpose. So it's telling me that the cybersecurity audit has a high prioritization and it's crucial for reducing risk and improving employee retention, which in the slides we said was, a key challenge. Voice integration assistant and its rationale, customer relationship management. And once again, it's not making the decisions for us, but it's giving us some insights into maybe what we should be considered prioritizing first. Now, ultimately, as we go through these things, we end up with a portfolio of projects. And as I go to the active portfolio of projects here within OnePlan, right? We then start looking at the concept of multiple portfolios. So this is designed to be for a particular portfolio or multiple portfolios. And notice we have what's called a plan type hierarchy. And I've got the portfolio level, which means we can have 1 or more portfolios. We could have then programs within each of those portfolios. And then within a program, we might have projects or epics, which it really indicates a more agile effort. And we can even get down to whatever level you want. Here in the epics, we've got maybe a feature level that we may want to get down to because some people want to plan to that level of granularity as a portfolio item. But the idea here is, for example, if I, drill into, operational excellence, you can see we have a program called supply chain optimization, and we have different elements in there of different plans, right? So the idea is that there's a separate portfolio for that. I have a portfolio here on data analytics transformation and in this enterprise data platform. And I've got things like a data warehouse migration and a variety of different things in here. But notice one thing. Notice that I've got these icons over to the left-hand side that tell me a few things. One is we could be integrated with other tool sets here. OnePlan has its own tools. It doesn't require these. But for example, this one is getting fed data from Microsoft Planner. This one's getting fed Azure DevOps. This one's getting fed from Smartsheet, Jira, Microsoft's newer project for the web, or the Microsoft Project Professional Desktop, or Monday.com. The idea there is that we're doing the portfolio planning, but bringing it all together, but maybe the execution details or schedules may be coming from other tools. Also notice I've got one here that just got a Teams icon. This one's telling me that I'm using Teams and a Teams site or channel for content and collaboration, but all the planning data is happening here within OnePlan. If I drill into this data warehouse migration, for example, just like there was with the ideas and the strategies, there's a details page that we can structure what data we want that has the data and metadata to categorize this project properly and classify it, the business case that came over from the idea, how we prioritized it, and what its prioritization score is, the current objective data on how we're doing on schedule, scope, cost, financials, effort, right? What this may be related to as far as other elements like key results and applications and products, etc. These things are all available to us, and that's what gets shown to us in those visualizations that we showed you. Then you have a work plan. In that work plan, we have, just like we have at the portfolio level, where we have plan types, we have the concept of work types. So for example, a schedule work type is maybe more waterfall conducive. Maybe a backlog work type may be more agile conducive. We can actually use the schedule work type to have a combination of agile and waterfall tasks, as well as tracking things like issues, risks, changes, key decisions, etc. And we could actually look at this traditionally, with or without a Gantt chart at any given point in time, and we can build these plans from templates, or we can bring them in from other tool sets. Now, this one was built right here via a template in OnePlan itself. But if you have these connectors enabled that OnePlan has available, that data could have come in from all these different tools as we come through here. Now, we have it set up in here the way this is configured, the backlog, which is a more agile approach, right? Where we may be bringing in our user stories and our requirements, and maybe even to the task level, or maybe even planning down our different sprints that we have available. But those things could be coming from an agile tool like an Azure DevOps or a Jira, etc. So the idea of these connectors gives us the flexibility, especially as we go cross-functionally across an organization. Different people may be married to different tool sets that they're not quite ready to abandon. So let's just leverage those and provide the portfolio management capabilities that we provide. So that's a good thing. And then there's the resource planning side of things, where we can build resource plans. And if we build these resource plans, we can plan both generically, we can plan with named individuals, we can plan with teams, and then we can even look at this and plan in terms of like hours or percentages or full-time equivalents, and look at what is required on this particular project, but also look at, even though this one's at 19% or 0.19 FTEs, it's showing overallocated because it's looking at all the other things in the system and seeing that, hey, we're already overcommitted on other stuff. So even though we want 19% of Russ, he's already got other commitments that maybe he's not our best choice to be doing the work on this one here, right? The same thing holds true with financials, right? We have financial plans that we can build in here, specifically with labor costs, non-labor costs, and we can even integrate these with your financial systems if you want to bring in the actuals that way as well. Okay. The other piece here is, as we look through this and we look at, say, not just an individual project resource plan like we just looked at, it all rolls up to an individual resource capacity plan overall that allows us to look at this. So for example, here, I'm looking at this by role, but I could also say, let me look at this organized by business unit, right? And as I look at this by business unit, let me open up the operations business unit, and I can see the individuals, named individuals, and the generic resource types that I have in here, right? And as I look through that, and I look at business unit and I expand operations, I can see that Dwight Schrute is very overloaded. Let me look at this in terms of FTEs, which makes it, I think, a little more clear. It basically says that, he's at least 1.5 times allocated here at a good stretch of time as we go through here, right? I could also then look and say, what do we still have planned generically in the logistics manager? I've got a generic logistics manager here that I haven't put a name to yet, right? So we better figure out who's going to do this work, right? And as I go in here, I could go and say, maybe I need to find somebody on this inventory management project that we have in this initiative. And this allows me to find candidates. And that's I'll just use the simple best match capabilities. And it tells me, out of the 2 people I have available, it looks like Kevin Malone has availability in the time frame that we need. And I can then select Kevin, and I can actually replace that generic with Kevin. Or conversely, I could look at Dwight Schrute, who was severely overallocated, and I could replace Dwight on a project with Kevin in order to help relieve some of that overallocation. So once again, I can do this all on a global basis as I go through here. So once again, a lot of rich functionality that we can't, cover all the details with today, but that's available to us. And then the enterprise architecture piece that we talked about, right? The other elements that we might look at in a strategic portfolio management. We can have, here I've got a multi-portfolio showing, where I've got a product portfolio of products, a portfolio of business capabilities, a portfolio of applications and value streams, etc. And the idea here is that, I can look at any one of these things and identify it and manage it here, but then I can associate it and align it with my projects, my initiatives, and my strategies. So for example, if I came down here and I was saying, I needed to look at something related to the CRM system, I could come in here and you'll notice that the details page looks different. For example, I've got a canvas down here for application vision that I can put data in. I have a life cycle for the life cycle of this. And by the way, I could actually have work plans for release cycles and release plans. I could have financials for the total cost of ownership, like with the financial plan. And that's all in here. And for example, I could just as easily come in from this application perspective and look at that same kind of visualization centered on this and see what other things might be dependent on me and how we're related to other things and how this application is tied off to the other things in the system. Once again, factoring in all the things that are available, okay? The other piece that I think I'm gonna finish up on is the modeler. And the modeler gives us the ability to create different models and what if scenarios. And we can create different folders for different things for different departments, right? In this case, I'll just focus on, for like say, IT operations and IT planning. And I can build a model. I can select which projects or potential projects I'd like to include in this. And here I'm potentially looking at 43 different things that I'd like to do. And I can set and see at any given point in time to do all these things, what would it take from a resource perspective? And I can see that there's a lot of red and yellow, which means I probably can't do it as is. I can also look at it from a financial perspective and see what dollars it's going to take to do all this based upon our budgets and see if it fits in what we're going to do, right? But ultimately, we can do different scenarios where I could say, let me put some constraints on here. Let me say I only have a $10 million budget. And I can then start selecting and deselecting projects with the financials in view, or maybe even time phasing this a little different, such that I can maybe move things out in time and stage these things in different time frames, such that as I go through here, I say, okay, I'd still want to do it, but maybe if I don't have the budget or the resources to do it, I might take a proposed project that we see down here, and I may decide to move it out into time, right? And let it re-rack that as part of this scenario. Once again, I'm not impacting the core data. Ultimately, we end up with a mix of projects that we want to look at, and we can evaluate as many other alternatives. I also have a $15 million scenario in here as well. And as we go through that, we can compare them. We can go in and say, all right, here's the 10 and the 15. Out of this, with the 10 million, I can only do 17 projects. I can do 27 if I get $5 million more dollars. Also, for that $5 million more dollars, it looks like I could get potentially a projected $20 million more in benefit. It might be worth my while doing that. So the idea is we can look at that. We can look at the, say, the traditional portfolio management bubble chart. In this case, I've got a grid that has prioritization score versus benefits, and I can see that the size of the different projects, and I can see of what we selected, making sure that these things are all higher priority and varying degrees of benefits. I can even interject the things I didn't select to see if I should reconsider any of these things where they fit on there. And we can also use the visualizer in another capacity here to understand if we've made the right decision. So for example, here are the plans I've selected, but here are unselected predecessors and successors. And we can determine, can we really do without those things? Can we really defer on those things based upon the things we have selected? So once again, a whole different set of parameters we can look at through here. And there's a lot of deeper functionality in this what if scenario planning modeler that we could get into at any given point in time. But if I go into this and I look at the overall, I could even ask Sophia in this one. I could have Sophia ask me, I can ask for input. So for example, let me go in and say, what project should we consider moving from out to in? Why? I'll give that one a try and see what Sophia comes up with. We could ask it a question like that, and it would come up with the answers that we need. So basically, the Agile Transformation Project is what it's coming up with, is what it's saying that we should do, and it's giving me the rationale as to why. Once again, in the interest of time, I just wanted to flash that at you. And then for the individual team member, having a My Work area where they can come in and look at all the things that have been on their plate by, in this case, by project or initiative, and there's tasks and risks and backlog items that they can status all from one place. I could even look at these things by, say, priority, so I can understand really what are the critical, important things I need to address right away versus things that are maybe of less criticality. And then the timesheet allows people to go into one place and to report time on all these things. So if we need to do chargebacks or billing or capitalization, we can do all those things all from one place and be able to put our time entries in, and even granular notes as far as explanations or justification of why we spent the time. So ultimately, those things are there with all kinds of approvals, both functional and resource management and project manager approvals. So I think I'll leave the demonstration at that, and I think I'll head back to the slides for wrap up. But just be aware that there's other scenarios we could go to. For example, in strategic planning, we built some OKRs for the operations department, but we can do all kinds of things like analyze the plan that's already in there and give it some assessments of where we're off track and where our risks are. We could actually do work management. We could actually ask it to create a plan and tasks for a digital transformation program in this case, and it would actually build out a work breakdown structure and a list of tasks. There's portfolio optimization, where we can ask it to provide a summary of the portfolio data and give us an analysis of the state of our portfolio. Budget plan and optimization, how do we optimize what's already there, right? Risk mitigation identification, identify potential risks on a particular project type and what we should be concerned about. Resource capacity planning, let it provide a sample resource plan based upon the type of project that it is and give us a starting point that we can work with instead of starting from scratch. And then predictive analysis on financials, where we're going and what things should we should call our attention to. And then even just communications, like writing a project summary email to your manager, or a project management status report. Now, it can write it for you, and then all you need to do is edit and refine it instead of building it from the ground up. So summary and next steps, let's just recap to say that operations has its own unique challenges for success within an organization, and that better alignment with strategy and business architecture is needed for successful outcomes these days. And so strategic portfolio management, or SPM, has become important in today's business environment, and becoming more so all the time. Because of the increased complexity and fast pace of change, it requires these new methods and approaches. And the introduction of generative AI is adding to the degree of change impact in engineering and product portfolios across an organization, meaning AI is going to impact us all, and we have to accommodate it and figure out how we're going to leverage it to our advantage. And then OnePlan provides end-to-end strategic portfolio management in the Microsoft cloud, and we deliver this that way, and we meet you where you are. So if you're not ready to tackle all dimensions of this discipline, we can handle just maybe strategy, and then your project portfolio, and then maybe do some alignment, and potentially then maybe have some intake and that type of thing. And maybe the enterprise architecture might be a later stage for you. But the idea is we want to get you on the path to that maturity and the benefit of that. And the use of AI provides valuable assistance that augments our own human skills. Now, we do this for a living. PPM, strategic portfolio management, project and portfolio management, adaptive portfolio management. We're recognized by Microsoft, Gartner, Infotech Research, and Software Reviews, and others. And Microsoft has actually named us their Global PPM Partner of the Year and/or finalist 5 consecutive years, and we're proud of that. Now, free trials are available. So if you're interested in what you saw today and you'd like to get your hands on it, you can go to oneplan.ai/solutions. It's also available up on Microsoft AppSource at appsource.com. If you want to get the full breadth, I encourage you to use the strategic portfolio management trial template that you see here. And then when it installs, there's a checkbox to say use sample data, which means you'll have a rich data set so you can visualize these things rather than having an empty one that you have to do for yourself. So ultimately, free trials are available, and we would love to chaperone you on that. So don't be bashful and engage with us on that. We have a roadmap workshop. So if you're saying, I'm intrigued, but I want to understand what it would take to get me from where I'm at to a solution like this, we're happy to have that workshop discussion with you and give you an idea of what it would take. You may already own a bunch of the technology that you already need. Also, if you just want more, this was very high level today. We can give you a personalized one-on-one demo. Just reach out and contact us at contact@oneplan.ai. Or if you're not quite there yet and you just want to learn more, go to www.oneplan.ai and research a little bit more about our solutions and all the variations we have. So with that, I'd just like to thank you all for your time and attention today. I know your time is valuable. We think about OnePlan as the power of one, bringing all these different dimensions into one pane of glass, right? Into one hub, so that we can manage this stuff interrelated in all one way. I hope you have a great day and wish you great success in your operations endeavors.